What if I told you that some reggae stars lost everything they achieved to substance addiction? From Gregory Isaacs, who said during his interview that substance abuse had ruined friendships, fractured his family, and nearly destroyed his legacy, to Fathead, who was found dead in an abandoned crack house after neighbors reported hearing gunshots. Here are 20 reggae stars who lost everything to substance abuse. Dennis Brown. Dennis Brown was a Jamaican reggae singer who rose to become one of the biggest stars in the genre. Dennis was only 11 years old when he started recording music in the late 1960s. At just 12 years old, he recorded the song "No Man is an Island." The song gained slow popularity at first, but eventually became a massive hit across Jamaica by the end of 1969. By 1972, Dennis began gaining fame beyond Jamaica. That year, he was invited to record an album with producer Joe Gibbs, and one of the tracks from that album, "Money in My Pocket," became a hit in the UK. It quickly became one of his most popular songs and even reached number 14 on the UK charts. Dennis continued to build on his success with hits like Cassandra, No, More Will I Roam, and Africa. He was on top of the world, with over 75 albums under his belt and collaborations with reggae greats. However, behind the fame and accomplishments, Dennis was struggling with something that would ultimately cost him everything: substance abuse. In the 1980s, Dennis started slowing down on music due to his substance addiction, which made him struggle. Though he always denied these substance abuse rumors, those close to him, like DJ Ranking Joe, knew the truth. Dennis's addiction led to erratic behavior, canceling shows, showing up late, and delivering inconsistent performances. His professional reputation began to take a hit, and it was clear to many that his addiction was getting in the way of his once promising career. By the late 1990s, the toll of years of substance use was evident in his health. In May 1999, while on tour in Brazil, Dennis fell seriously ill. He was diagnosed with pneumonia and had to return to Jamaica to recover. But things quickly worsened, and on June 30th, 1999, Dennis Brown was rushed to Kingston's University Hospital after suffering a cardiac arrest. The next day, he passed away. Since his death, over 50 of his albums have been released, reminding us of the incredible talent he had. It's heartbreaking to think what might have been. If Dennis Brown had been able to stay away from these substances, he could have been remembered as one of the greatest reggae stars of all time, possibly even a Grammy winner. Instead, his life and career were cut short by his addiction. Smiley Culture. Smiley Culture was a British reggae singer and DJ who became famous for his fast chat style of rapping. His big break came in 1984 when he released Police Officer. The song told the story of how he was arrested for carrying illegal substances, but was let go when the officer recognized him as a famous reggae artist. The song surprised many by becoming a hit, selling 160,000 copies, and reaching the UK top 20 charts. Following that success, another of his songs, Cockney Translation, was re-released. The track explained the differences between Jamaican patois and Cockney slang. It gained a lot of attention, playing on BBC Radio 1 and selling 40,000 copies. Fans loved his unique style and his ability to merge comedy with reggae in his lyrics. In July 2010, his life took a tragic turn. He was arrested and charged with conspiracy to supply illegal substances. He was set to stand trial in March 2011, but just days before the trial, on March 15, 2011, Smiley Culture's life ended in a shocking and mysterious way. While police officers were searching his home in Warlingham, Surrey, he stabbed himself in the heart. Rumors began to fly that Smiley might have stabbed himself to avoid being caught or sentenced for the charges against him. The theory was that he couldn't bear to face the consequences of his actions and chose to end his life instead. The police claimed it was self-inflicted, but many people, including his family, found it hard to believe. The whole situation was confusing, and people questioned what really happened. The police had arrived with a search warrant related to smuggling, and Smiley's death came just an hour and a half after they arrived. The case was investigated by the Independent Police Complaints Commission, but in the end, the report was never made public, and even Smiley's family wasn't allowed to see it. The 4 officers who were present when Smiley died were never charged with anything. Digga D. Digga D is a British rapper who is part of the UK drill group CGM. He first got into music at age 12, influenced by reggae and dancehall, and began writing his own songs. Reese made his first track in 2011 at the Harrow Club, working with other young artists who would later become part of the group 1011. His first two mixtapes, Double Tap Diaries and Made in the Pyrex, both reached the top 10 on the UK albums chart. His third mixtape, Naughty by Nature, released on April 15, 2022, hit number 1, marking a major milestone in his career. In August 2023, he dropped his fourth mixtape, Back to Square One. Despite his early promise, Digga D's career has been marred by repeated encounters with the law. His troubles began in 2017, when he and members of 1011 were arrested. In 2018, they were hit with a criminal behavior order, restricting them from releasing music without police permission, and banning them from mentioning real people or places in their lyrics. In February 2024, he was raided while live streaming on Instagram. The police arrived at his home in Bracebridge Heath, where he was arrested for suspected involvement in illegal substances. And it was here that his battles with substance trafficking came into light. When he was charged with supplying and importing illegal substances, the truth about Digga D's life behind the scenes was exposed. This experience would define the darkest chapter of his career. On May 29, 2024, he pleaded guilty to smuggling a significant quantity of illegal substances, but he denied being part of a larger criminal operation. Despite this, he was sentenced to 3 years and 11 months in prison on January 31, 2025, for his role in supplying 45 kilograms of illegal substance. From mixtapes that hit the charts to prison sentences, it's clear that his involvement in criminal activities ultimately cost him everything: his career, his freedom, and his chance at realizing the full extent of his talent. Ninja Man. Ninja Man is a Jamaican dancehall DJ famous for his bold, controversial lyrics, especially those promoting gun culture, and his wild, dramatic style of performing. He started his DJ career at just 14 years old, going by the name Double Ugly, while performing with the Black Culture sound system. His first big hit came in 1987, a song called Protection, a duet with Courtney Melody. This success led to him working with several well-known producers, including King Jammy, Witty, Bobby Digital, and Steely and Clevy. Ninja Man was famous for his freestyling abilities, making up all his lyrics on the spot in the recording booth without writing anything down. Between 1989 and 1992, he released a series of hard-hitting tracks like Border Clash, Murder Dem, Permit to Bury, and Above the Law. These songs solidified his image as a violent, no-nonsense, rude boy. He also engaged in fierce lyrical battles with other top DJs like Florgon, Supercat, and Shabba Ranks. But by 1993, things began to shift. People started criticizing his violent, pro-gun lyrics, and his popularity began to fade. Fewer promoters wanted to book him, and his recording opportunities slowed down. Behind the scenes, Ninja Man had been struggling with addiction for over a decade. His substance abuse led to erratic behavior, missed performances, and strained relationships within the music industry. In 1997, he was caught with crack cocaine during a routine spot check and was given a suspended sentence, with the condition that he sought help for his addiction. Ninja Man acknowledged the toll it took on his life and career, saying, "It was a serious problem in our days. I spent 10 years smoking, and I saw what it was doing to people. So I stopped." Despite his best efforts to clean up and return to music, his past continued to haunt him. In March 2009, Ninja Man and his son, Johnny L., were arrested and charged with the murder of Ricardo Johnson, a man who was shot and killed on Marl Road in Kingston. According to the prosecutors, there had been an altercation the day before Johnson was killed, and the next day, Ninja Man, his son, and a third man returned with guns and chased Johnson and another witness through a fence. As Johnson tried to fend off the attackers, shots were fired, and Johnson was struck. He later died from his injuries. Ninja Man was granted bail in 2012 for 2 million Jordanian dinars, and his court date was set for July 15th that same year. However, when the day came, only 15 of the 58 jurors showed up, and the trial was postponed. The trial didn't actually start until January 2016, after several more delays. But in 2017, everything came crashing down. On November 20th, Ninjaman and his co-accused were found guilty of Ricardo Johnson's murder. A month later, on December 18th, Ninjaman was sentenced to life in prison. He won't be eligible for parole until he has served at least 25 years. His addiction and criminal activities ultimately destroyed everything he worked for. He went from being one of the most feared and respected artists in the dancehall scene to a man whose life and career were completely derailed by the consequences of his actions. If you are enjoying this video, appreciate it by giving it a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. JABB. JABB is an American rapper who became famous with his hit song, Boogeyman. The track, released in 2024, quickly gained traction, landing on the Billboard Bubbling Under Hot 100 and the Hot R&B hip-hop songs charts. Growing up, JABB spent a lot of time in recording studios with his dad, and was part of his cousin EBK Young Jock's group, EBK Hot Boys. His early tracks started to gain popularity both in his neighborhood and online, and by 2021, he dropped his first album, Letter 4, The Streets. Songs like Can't Stop Me and Struggle gave fans a raw look into his tough life and his determination to keep pushing forward despite the obstacles. JABB's music stood out for its gritty street stories and raw energy, something he inherited from his father, Rari, who was also a rapper. But while the fame was growing, so were JABB's legal troubles. He had already been in and out of jail since he was a teenager. In an interview, he said, "I first went to jail at 14, blood. Then I went to juvenile hall at 15 and did 2 years. Got out at 17, was only out for a few months, went back and did 2 more years." Despite being behind bars, JABB continued to make music, and in 2023, he released Sinner's Prayer, an emotional album where he spoke about his struggles, faith, and hope for turning things around. In 2024, he released The Reaper from prison, proving that no matter where he was never giving up on his music. The album's standout track, Boogeyman, became a massive hit, and by early 2025, JABB was finally released from prison. He jumped back into the spotlight with his viral track, First Day Out, The Biggest G, which garnered over 1.5 million views on YouTube in just 1 week. It looked like JABB was finally on a better path, and his career was about to soar. However, just 1 month after his release, everything came crashing down again. On March 6th, 2025, EBK JABB was arrested once more, this time on substance and ammunition charges. His legal troubles had resurfaced, and he found himself back in jail. Despite dropping songs while incarcerated, fans are left wondering what's next for JABB. FATHEAD. FATHEAD was a talented dancehall musician, best known for his work with Yellowman in the early 1980s. Together, they became a legendary duo, performing at Ace's Disco in St. Thomas and making history with the first ever live dancehall album, Live at Ace's. Their partnership brought massive success, leading to more albums like Bad Boy Skanking and For Your Eyes Only. But while Yellowman shifted toward a solo career, FATHEAD struggled to maintain the same momentum. As the spotlight faded, FATHEAD started slipping into a darker lifestyle. Those close to him said he became increasingly dependent on illegal substances, and it slowly eroded both his focus and his career. FATHEAD, who was once known for his electrifying performances and clever lyrics, was now missing shows, forgetting lines, and lashing out at people who tried to help him. His collaboration with Yellowman in 1984 on Showdown Volume 5 was meant to reignite the magic, but behind the scenes, his personal life was falling apart. Then came the rumors in the community that FATHEAD was no longer just using, but had become entangled in the trade itself. It was the kind of thing nobody wanted to believe about a man who had helped shape the sound of an era. But by the late 80s, those whispers became harder to ignore. On December 22, 1988, FATHEAD was shot and killed in Florida. He was found dead in an abandoned Miami apartment after neighbors reported hearing gunshots. The place was later identified by police as a crack house. The truth that emerged later was more tragic than anyone expected. In an interview years after FATHEAD's death, Yellowman revealed that FATHEAD had been secretly involved in the Miami illegal substance trade. What started as casual use had turned into full-blown addiction. and that addiction dragged him into a life that eventually cost him everything, including his life. Before his death, very few outside his circle knew how deep he had fallen. Majek Fashek. Majek Fashek was one of Nigeria's most gifted and iconic musicians. His 1988 album, Prisoner of Conscience, made him a household name, driven by the massive success of the hit single Send Down the Rain. The track earned him 6 music awards and the nickname The Rainmaker. For a time, it seemed like nothing could stop Majek. His talent opened international doors, and he worked with stars like Tracy Chapman, Jimmy Cliff, Michael Jackson, Snoop Dogg, and Beyoncé. In the early 1990s, he signed with CBS Nigeria, releasing So Long Too Long, which gained global attention and landed on Putumayo World Music's debut compilation. By 1990, Majek had joined Interscope Records and dropped Spirit of Love, produced by Steven Van Zandt. In 1992, he even performed So Long Too Long on Late Night with David Letterman, which was a rare honor for a Nigerian reggae artist at the time. But as his fame soared, Majek's personal life started to unravel. The signs were there: missed shows, incoherent interviews, and long gaps between projects. Majek started taking substances that would affect his career and life. Though he worked with top-tier record labels like Tough Gong and Coral Records, and released albums like Rainmaker and Little Patience, his output became very poor. From 2005 to 2015, he did not produce any albums. Friends and industry insiders began whispering about substance abuse, and by 2015, the rumors exploded. Stories emerged of Majek being homeless, wandering the streets and begging for help. His former backup singer, Monica Omarodion Swida, launched a GoFundMe campaign to get him off the streets and into rehab. It was a painful fall from grace for someone who once collaborated with global legends. In a 2017 interview, Majek tried to deny it all. He said, "Let me put the record straight. I never used any substance. I was actually experiencing some spiritual attack at that time. My problem was spiritual, not addiction." However, only a few believed him. His physical condition had deteriorated drastically, and the spark that once lit up stages from Lagos to New York was barely there. Majek Fashek died in his sleep on June 1st, 2020, in New York City at the age of 57. He had been battling esophageal cancer, but after his death, the truth finally came out. His manager confirmed what many had suspected for years. Majek had indeed struggled with substance addiction. Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo was a reggae and dancehall artist who was famous from the late 1970s to the early 1990s. Ringo first made a name for himself as an operator for major sound systems like Soul Express and Ripatone. By the late 1970s, he stepped into the spotlight with his debut single Trouble Never Set Like Rain, a track that kicked off a promising career. His witty and often provocative lyrics made him a standout, especially with songs like Two Lesbians and Push Lady Push. He became popular after releasing Dub and Lef in 1982. As his popularity grew, so did his lifestyle. The same year he scored major hits like Pain a Back, Nah, Fight Over Woman, and Married for the Opportunity. He also contributed the opening track to Superstar Yellow Man Has Arrived with Toyon, proving his status in the dancehall scene. Ringo was a fixture in the sound system circuit, performing with Lee's Unlimited and Ray Symbolic Hi-Fi, often touring alongside Squidly Ranking and Welton Irie. These tours brought Jamaican dancehall to new international audiences, and Ringo played a central role in that wave. He also helped pioneer some of the earliest live dancehall albums during this period. But behind the scenes, his life was slowly being derailed. As the years went by, Ringo's growing substance addiction habits started taking a toll, not just on his health, but on his ability to record, tour, or maintain industry relationships. By the early 1990s, he had quietly faded from the studio and stage, not because fans had forgotten him, but because addiction had pulled him into isolation. Johnny Ringo spent his later years struggling to regain control, but the addiction proved too powerful. After years of battling his demons, he passed away in July 2005. Gregory Isaacs. Gregory Isaacs was once celebrated as one of reggae's smoothest voices, earning him the nickname the Cool Ruler. But behind the laid-back charm and romantic lyrics was a life scarred by addiction and arrests. He He began his career in 1968 under the name Winston Sinclair, but it didn't take long before his signature sound began to emerge. Teaming up with Errol Dunkley, he co-founded the African Museum label. It was through this label that he released My Only Lover, a groundbreaking track often called the first ever lovers rock reggae song. From there, the hits kept coming. All I Have Is Love, Lonely Soldier, Extra Classic, Black a Kill Black, Loving Pauper. By the late 1970s, Gregory Isaacs had become a household name in Jamaica and one of the genre's brightest stars, standing shoulder to shoulder with giants like Bob Marley and Dennis Brown. In 1982, Isaacs signed with Island Records and released Night Nurse, a seductive, sultry tune that would become his signature song. While it never cracked the top 10 charts in the US or UK, it was a smash on the radio and in clubs. The Night Nurse album climbed to number 1, 32 in the UK, and the song's impact was so lasting that a cold and flu remedy even borrowed its title years later for an ad campaign. But at the very peak of his success, Isaacs' world began to crumble. In 1982, the same year Night Nurse dropped, he was arrested for possession of unlicensed firearms. He said they were for protection, but the arrest was his 27th, including those he was arrested for possession of illegal substances. Behind the scenes, his growing addiction to illegal substances had started to take over his life. He became erratic, paranoid, and unreliable. These substances not only robbed him of money and health, but also his signature voice. By the late 2000s, his once silky vocals had turned raspy, and he had lost most of his teeth. His wife, June Isaacs, would later reveal the toll addiction took on their family. She said, "The paranoia was terrible. He would not go to a rehab place, or he would do the treatment for a few days and stop." Despite everything, Isaacs continued recording and performing, but it was a means to fund his habit rather than an expression of his art. Promoters grew frustrated, often rescheduling flights multiple times just to get him to a show. Isaacs told a reporter in 1988 how deeply addiction had wounded his life. It ruined friendships, fractured his family, and nearly destroyed his legacy. By the time he passed away from lung cancer in 2010, Gregory Isaacs was a shell of the man fans once knew. Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor was a reggae singer with a smooth and soulful voice. He began his career in Jamaica, recording with top producers like Winston Holness. Together, they crafted local hits like Just a Feeling and Sufferation. But it wasn't until 1983 that he truly broke through. That year, he released Cottage in Negril, a dreamy romantic track that soared across the airwaves. It became a massive hit, not only in Jamaica, but internationally, earning Taylor the title of Best-Selling Singer of 1983. His rise caught the attention of MCA Records, a major American label. They signed Taylor and released Pledge to the Sun, banking on the success of Cottage in Negril. However, the album failed to chart, and the label quickly lost interest. Taylor was sent on a poorly managed European tour without meaningful support from MCA. Frustrated and feeling discarded, he walked away from the deal. The music industry had turned its back on him, and that's when his life began to spiral. Disappointed and disillusioned, Taylor started turning to substance abuse and alcohol. The addictions crept in slowly at first, but as the years wore on, they took over completely. By the late 1980s, he was releasing music only occasionally. In 1987, he had a brief resurgence with songs like Members Only and Be For Real, but the old spark was fading. Taylor's addiction grew worse, and so did his circumstances. As his health and finances collapsed, he drifted farther from the spotlight. Eventually, he became homeless. For the last 18 years of his life, the man who once ruled the reggae charts lived on the streets of Skid Row in Los Angeles. In 2007, Tyrone Taylor suffered 2 strokes that left him confined to a wheelchair. He passed away later that year from complications related to prostate cancer. Jawara Macintosh. Jawara Macintosh was born into a reggae family as the son of Peter Tosh, one of the founding members of the Wailers. With music in his blood, Jawara grew up under the influence of his father's militant spirit and the conscious vibrations of reggae greats like Bob Marley and his uncle Bunny Wailer. Carrying his father's message forward, Tosh One stepped into the music scene by remaking You Can't Blame the Youths, one of Peter Tosh's most iconic protest songs. The move introduced him to reggae audiences. Tosh One went on to share stages with popular reggae artists like Sizzla, Gregory Isaacs, Shabba Ranks, and Damian Marley. He performed live with Sinead O'Connor, while backed by Sly and Robbie, touring with heavyweight dub champion and collaborating with Daniel Brown, son of reggae legend Dennis Brown. But just as his star was beginning to rise, everything changed. On June 15, 2013, Jawara was pulled over in Mahwah, New Jersey, in what started as a routine traffic stop. Police claimed he was driving erratically, had open alcohol in the vehicle, and was operating the car with a suspended license. But the real blow came when they opened his trunk and found 65 pounds of illegal substances packed into 3 large bags. It was a moment that would completely derail his future. Tosh One was arrested and faced multiple charges, including possession with intent to distribute. After spending more than 6 months in jail awaiting his case, he pleaded guilty in August 2016 and was sentenced to 1 year. But things got far worse. In January 2017, just months into serving time at Bergen County Jail, Tosh One was involved in a violent altercation with another inmate. He suffered a severe brain injury during the incident and fell into a coma. For the next year, he remained unconscious and his musical career was frozen, his body broken, and his family left devastated. When he finally woke up, the damage was irreversible. He died months later. Baby Wayne. Baby Wayne was a Jamaican dancehall artist known for his powerful, socially conscious lyrics and a gritty voice that stood out in the 1990s scene. He broke through with tracks like Mama and The Truth, using his music to speak on issues like poverty, betrayal, and the street code. In 1993, his collaboration with reggae icon Leroy Smart on Me Know, Me Friend became a top 10 hit in Jamaica, cementing him as a rising star. That same year, under the guidance of producer Winston Holness, Baby Wayne signed with Heartbeat Records and dropped his debut album Ram DJ in 1994. The album, which featured guest appearances from legends like Sugar Minott and Dennis Brown, showed just how respected he was in the industry. But even as the music spoke of clarity and conscience, Baby Wayne's real life was starting to slip. After teaming up with producer Lloyd Dennis in 1995 and scoring with Tongue Make Knot, things began to unravel. Behind the scenes, addiction had crept in and was now fighting to overtake the artist the world had fallen in love with. His once focused message began to blur, and soon, the headlines shifted from music to arrests. One incident made national news when police found a pipe with residue in his pocket at the Montego Bay Transport Center. But that wasn't the first or last time. In another incident, a woman was seen sprinting from a building shouting, "Feds are come! Feds are come!" When officers stormed inside, they found Baby Wayne smoking from a pipe. The same voice that had warned youth about street life had become one of its victims. People who had watched his rise believed he could have been one of Jamaica's greatest entertainers, if not for the substances. Even though his discography still resonates with fans, his personal demons kept pulling him further from the spotlight. By the mid-2000s, he was no longer the force he once was. On October 28, 2005, Baby Wayne passed away at Kingston Public Hospital due to complications from pneumonia, but many believe the real cause was a life worn down by addiction. Which of these reggae stars' downfalls touched you most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content.